A very good morning, dear children, and welcome back to the online teaching session conducted by Nawaz by Tata English Medium School. I hope all of you are good and doing your study very well. For social science, today we are going to revise our chapter number 2, Journey from Primitive Man to Settled Life. So, first of all, who is primitive man? Primitive man means people of very old time. Approximately 20 lakh years ago, they lived a nomadic life in search of food and spent their time in hunting. This stage of humans is called as hunters and gatherers. Since the life of hunters and gatherers is associated with stones technology, this time is called Paleolithic or Stone Age. Primitive men used to cover their body with the peel of a tree and the skin of animals. These primitive men used stone to cut vegetations and scrape the skin of animals. About 11,000 years ago, primitive men started to use fire. The discovery of fire brought revolutionary change in his life. After that invention of the wheel resulted in a significant change in the lives of primitive men. They made a wheel from a tree trunk and thick wood. So, move towards our first question. Why primitive man's time is called the Stone Age? As we already discussed, the life of primitive men was associated with stone. Their implements and weapons were made from stone. Their caves were also made of stones. Primitive men preferred to stay in good and large places where stones, woods and water could be found. The primitive men made the farming tools or implements like spade or hoe, chisel, sickle, etc. from stone. Thus, primitive men were associated with the stone technology, so their time is called the Stone Age. Move towards our second question. Write a short note, the changing environment. Around 12,000 years ago, with the widespread changes in the atmosphere of the world, the temperature increases. In many places of the world, due to this, there were many changes seen on the earth. They are as follows. See the first one, the changes led to the development of vegetation and grasslands. So, this in turn led to increase in the number of herbivorous animals like deer, sheep, goats, etc. Second, the herbivorous animals were useful to primitive men in many ways. So, they started to study their behavior, means animals' behavior. Due to the changing climate, grains like wheat, barley, millet, etc. were grown with the grass, trees and vegetation. So, many other changes came in the vegetation also. Many plants were grown by themselves. Finding such crops useful, they started to grow the grains after collecting them with curiosity. So, thus it was the beginning of agriculture in India. So, primitive men started agriculture, means farming. After the beginning of farming, primitive men started to live in houses. So, now primitive men made houses. They made houses of mud, thatch and other materials around their farms. The dog was the first companion of the settled primitives. Besides this, they started to live with pet animals. So, primitive men also started to tame animals like cows, bullocks, buffaloes, etc. and to protect them from the wild animals. Now, move towards our third question. State the activities of primitives after the settled life. Now, because of agriculture, primitive men started settled life. The activities of primitives after the settled life are as follows. To grow grains at the place where water is available. As the wandering life came to an end, there was a wide change in the food habits, clothes and the shelter of primitive man, and man settled where he can easily find water to make the earthen pots or small burns from storing the collected grains. Now he started different activities. Primitive men started making earthen pots and small barn to protect their animals and also to collect grains, fruits, meat and fish for food, to make farming implements like spade or hoe, chisel, sickle, etc. So for farming, the primitive man made different tools and he made these tools from stones. Our next question is, how did primitive men use animals? Now, primitive men started animal husbandry with farming. Primitive men used animals as follows. When primitive men lived the life of hunters and gatherers, they hunted animals like deer, sheep and goats and used them as food. So, after the invention of fire, the primitive men used this fire to cook his food and he eat deer, sheep, goats. Primitive men also used the skin of animals to cover their body. They made friends with animals. So as we already discussed, the dog was the first companion of the settled life of primitive men. Besides this, they became familiar with the animals like sheep, goats, cows, buffalo and pigs. They made some animals as their pets. As a result, the cattle rearing activity was started. Our next question is, write the information about Mehargarh as an ancient place. In ancient time, Mehargarh may be considered as the oldest village of India. Presently, it is located in Pakistan. The farming of wheat, barley was started here. The people from here used to rear sheep and goats to grow grains and to store them. According to the evidence found at the place in Mehargarh, the people of that time buried goat with the dead body. Small barns to store grains have been found from these houses. The people of Mehargarh buried dead person with respect. In one instant, the dead person buried with goat has been found. As we already discussed that, it shows the belief that there is some form of a life after the death. With this, we have come to the end of our today's revision session. I hope you understand our today's session, and if you have any query, just contact me. Until we meet for the next session, stay home, stay safe, stay positive, keep learning, and thank you for watching.